The widely recognized phenomenon is that organizations are, on a pretty regular basis, walking back on the promises they've made to their employees. So they've cut pension benefits, retiree, health care. Oftentimes people come into places being promised things and those implicit psychological contracts are broken. And that's not really news in some sense. On the other hand, there is this idea, a very powerful and long-standing social theory, social idea, which talks about the norm of reciprocity, that when you do something for someone, and particularly if you do something nice for someone, that person ought to repay the favor. So if I give you a ride, you ought to give me a ride. If I invite you over for dinner, you should invite me over for dinner, things such as that. And so you have, on the one hand, this wonderful discontinuity between organizations that seem to be breaking promises and breaking not really rewarding the hard work and good efforts that their employees have put in. And on the other hand, this norm of reciprocity. The intuition that we had is that as soon as you put people into an organizational context, you told them, as opposed to a personal relationship, they were now in an organization. Instead of a favor being done for them by a friend, it was being done by a coworker and things such as that, that would change the dynamic in some fundamental ways that would cause the person who receives the favor to feel less obligated to repay the favor simply because it was delivered in an organizational setting. And that's essentially what we found. Now, there's some mechanisms that underlie this. One mechanism, if you think about it, reciprocity means if you've done me a favor in the past, I should, following the norm of reciprocity, repay that favor. However, organizations are not about the past. They're about the future. And so therefore, to the extent that you are not going to be useful to me in the future, or not going to be helpful to me in my job and my career, then I won't feel as obligated to repay the favor in an organizational setting, because organizations are very much about thinking about the future. Organizations also prompt a more calculative or strategic mindset, where you're always thinking about can somebody be useful or not? Can they be helpful or not? And so when you get a favor done for you in an organizational setting, you're less likely to attribute that kindness to some trait or disposition of the individual, and more likely to attribute it to the fact, well, they were just doing their job. And that also then diminishes the pressures or the likelihood that you will repay that favor, because it's not really a favor, it was just part of their job.